Welcome to Don't Encourage Us, the show where we talk about the big ideas behind fiction projects of all different kinds. Books, movies, TV shows, video games, nothing's off limits. I'm your host, Larry, and I'm here with my brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl, special recurring guest, thespian Matthew Baughman. Welcome back, Matt.
Good to be back. Daryl, I love that. That's a great rep. What was that from? Is that the Bob Newhart show?
From Newhart.
Larry, Daryl, and Daryl?
Yes.
Yeah. Good
classic
reference. Good
sitcom.
callback.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Worth a rewatch. I think it's on YouTube. So today we have a new type of episode where we debate a controversial movie that one of us loves. Is it terrible? Is it incredible? Stick around for what I'm calling Defend Yourself, 2003's The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. But first...
Dun, dun, dun.
Steve, has anyone ever told you you look like a celebrity?
Keanu Reeves once, but it was a blind lady.
Really? Interesting.
How about you, Matt? You ever get that? You look like a celebrity?
I used to get, it's been a while, I used to get Chris Pine a lot.
Oh, yeah.
When he was like in Star Trek, like when the Star Trek first came out, in my younger days. I haven't gotten anyone, and I used to get James Marsden quite a bit. I don't really see him that much, maybe a little bit in the nose.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Chris Pine I would get. I think those are the only two. I mean, I'll take either of them. They're handsome gentlemen.
How about you?
Those are nice.
How about you?
Megan Fox.
Incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, I get that a lot. So did you guys watch Love is Blind season
I knew I was
6?
attracted to you. I couldn't put my finger on it.
It's the eyes. It's just the eyes and the nose. Did you guys watch Love is Blind, the latest season?
No, I have not watched 0% of.
I know
Love
what
is
you're
Blind.
referring to, though.
Oh, you're a sports guy. That's right.
I'm a sports guy.
Yeah. So Love is Blind is Steve and I's favorite show to make fun of. The premise is you have men and women, and they cannot see each other. They're in like pods, and they have quote unquote dates. And the whole point of the show is to test and see if two people can fall in love without seeing each other. After they have like a weekend of going on these dates with multiple people, then they decide if they want to propose to somebody. Then after that, they go on vacation, they move in together, they meet their families, and then they go to the altar, right?
Oh, wait, are they not seeing each other at all during all this?
They aren't until after they propose and then they meet, right? So after they propose
first. Oh, I see. Okay.
Right. So after the weekend where they do the dating, they propose, then they meet, then they move in together, and you do see each other when you move in together. They're trying to test this idea that love is blind, right? Or can be blind. So people can fall in love without sort of the physical piece, at least initially. And the reason I mentioned the question is because of one of the contestants, a woman, mentioned just casually that she looks like Megan Fox, or that she's been told that. And the guy who had been debating two women, he was sort of, interested and attracted to two women, immediately, like his eyes like popped open and he went with her. After that, he just couldn't get like Megan Fox from Transformers, I think, like bent over a Corvette or whatever that car was, which I will never remember the car. I think he couldn't get that out of his head. And so he totally picked this woman. And surprise, spoiler, if you haven't seen the season, it doesn't work out well.
Did she look like Megan Fox?
I mean, what? Steve, you want to weigh in on this one?
She was a woman. She had dark hair. So I'd say no, not really.
Yeah, I would say not even remotely, except it looks like possibly the woman, the contestant from Love is Blind, might have watched some of Megan Fox's like makeup tutorials. Like she kind of does her makeup a little bit like Megan Fox does, but that's the full extent of it. But I looked online, and there's some people who actually think she sort of looks like her, which
interesting.
is really
no,
weird
she
to
looks
me.
nothing like her. Like
Nothing like her.
Do you remember her name?
Just look up Love is Blind.
I'd like to weigh
Megan
in.
Fox.
Yeah.
Side by side comparison.
I'm sure there's some Reddit thread about it.
I'll be the judge of
that you
this.
can chime in on.
No, not even close. But she's not unattractive, but she doesn't look like Megan Fox at all.
Right. Well, and the other woman, she's a single mom, and she kind of dumped that on him in a way that I guess made sense to her, but was a little bit abrupt. And I think that sort of pushed him to the fence But that woman is actually quite attractive. She doesn't look like Megan Fox, but she's closer, I guess. I don't know. I think he was trying not to look like a jerk for the rest of the season, but I think the minute he saw her, he pretty much wanted out.
So he proposed to her? Like he actually proposed to her thinking she looked like Megan Fox?
Yeah, that's right.
That's a
yeah,
that's
exactly.
Love
Ain't that blind. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a smart strategy, right? Like there was a guy in another season. Keep in mind, they can't see the people they're talking to. So there was a guy in another season who was like, so if we went to a concert, could I put you on my shoulders?
Oh, wow.
If we hugged, could I get my arms all the way around you?
Yes.
Very subtle.
Yeah.
Very subtle.
I think
Classy.
if I was put in that position in Love It Was Blind and someone asked me who do I look like, I think I would have to measure my expectations. I probably would pick someone. I couldn't say Chris Pine or James Marsden because they are really attractive, and I definitely do not. I'm not as handsome. I might have some resemblance, but I'm definitely not as attractive to them. So I'd have to like really lower myself down. Maybe like a Jim Carrey, or someone like that. I'm like, yeah, I kind of look like I look like a young Jim Carrey or something like that. They're not. He's not unattractive, but he's not like he's never going to be voted sexiest man alive or anything like that.
Steve, I feel like he's struggling. Should we help out?
Well, with
here?
his comparison.
So if someone asks you have any thoughts about what celebrities Matt looks like?
I guess I could see the Chris Pine.
Like
it's
a
hard
little
for
bit.
Steve because he's known me for so long.
You look like
It's
Matt.
like
To me, yeah.
I look like Matt
Baughman,
Baughman, celebrity Matt Baughman.
Thespian of renowned. It's
you know,
tough. I don't know.
I would go Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. Huh?
I do kind of
You
have
see
the
him
hair.
A little
A little bit? A little bit? No.
Okay, then that's who I'll say. I'll say Calvin and Hobbes. I look like Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. Then they look at me and they're like, oh, well, he is actually slightly better looking than Calvin.
And he's not a
from Calvin
cartoon.
and Hobbes.
So there's that.
Sell strategy, baby.
He's kind of arrogant, though.
Calvin?
Yes,
Yeah,
Matt.
Calvin is super
Calvin.
arrogant. He's so arrogant.
He's so arrogant.
Everyone
is he?
says
I
he's
don't-
so arrogant. He's famous for it.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Moving on. Also noteworthy, did you guys see or hear the Sony Pictures Madam Web?
Oh,
Anybody
yes.
familiar with this? It is
I'm not even familiar. I
Oh,
went to go
boy.
see it.
MCU adjacent. Okay, so you're the one.
I mean, literally, I was the one in the theater and it was opening weekend.
That's amazing.
Wow.
And
Did you lose a bet?
Well, I had time to kill, and that was the only movie that was playing.
do you believe this
Which
story?
is never true, but continue.
Like any of it? It's very suspicious.
Camped outside.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I would go see it anyway. I'll see
Anything.
any.
You'll see anything.
I mean,
yeah.
I sat through League of Extraordinary Gentlemen twice, so I'll see Madam
Ooh,
Web.
Shots fired already.
Oh,
Wow.
getting started early.
But
All right.
I saw it, and I'm going to be honest with you. I liked it better than League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I'll put it that
It's
way.
very
It was not.
interesting. That was it, right?
When did you start smoking crack exactly?
The afternoon that I saw Madam Web.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
So after 5 miserable weeks in the theaters, they sent it directly to streaming.
Yeah.
So I think this is a record. Madam Web is already streaming after 5 weeks in the theater.
They never do that. Is it available to rent or just buy? Because now they're doing the whole buy thing.
No, rent.
Yeah, you
It's
can
rent or buy.
I think that's a first. Because, they do the buy for 3 months or something, and then it goes to rent.
Yeah, it's like $60 or whatever.
Speaking of awful
Thanks.
movies, has anyone seen the new Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal?
No, I haven't.
no.
I want to.
Oh my
Have
God.
you?
It is absolutely horrible. It's an abomination. That's why I think we should do an episode about it. It's really,
really?
really awful. It's like a script that you would write in an afternoon on index cards and just tape them all together and just throw them out there. It is so bad. I can't believe that any of those actors signed up for it. If you would have read the script, you'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. This is just really an abomination.
Well, I mean, it has a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's actually considered fresh, which is
That's
nuts.
fresh?
Yeah, it's fresh.
It wasn't fresh when I got that in school.
I mean, there is no there's nothing that
120
really can
reviews.
redeem that movie. I don't know why he signed up for it. I don't know why any of the actors signed up for it. The script is paper thin.
Have you
I
seen
never
the
saw
original?
the original now.
Yeah, I never saw the original either.
Wow. You guys haven't seen the original?
No.
That's insane. Well, that's probably why you were so confused and lost.
Right.
in
Yeah, I
this
had no
one.
idea what was going on. What kind of plot is this? It was...
Jake
Wow,
Gyllenhaal
yeah.
just wanted an excuse to get ripped again.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, maybe that's what they were just in the gym and they were like, you know, it'd be a good movie. This one that's on TV in the gym. We should just do that.
You know, it's one of those movies that has like those setups where you think like, oh, they're going to go in this direction. Like he's going to mentor this guy in the bar or whatever to become like a bouncer or whatever. No, it's just like these scenes that go absolutely nowhere. Like it was all just like randomly pasted together. Yeah, it was something. I was kind of looking forward to it though, because I liked the trailer. I thought the trailer looked pretty
Yeah.
cool. But that's about it. You get some semi-decent fight scenes, but nothing else makes sense.
Yeah.
You gotta watch it though, just to
Now
see.
it's like UFC related,
Mhm.
right?
Conor McGregor shows up. Yeah, he's a former UFC fighter, but you just see it in flashbacks.
Huh.
It's something.
Okay.
And it's got great people behind it. Like Doug Liman directed it, Joel Silver produced it, Jake Gyllenhaal's a star.
I didn't know that.
mean, you would think they would have done something with the property, but there were a lot of cooks in that kitchen though, I think. From the credits, it looked like there were like 5 or 6 different people involved in the screenplay. So that might have had something
really?
to do with it, and probably some ghostwriters too.
Now, do you think that's why it went directly to Amazon Prime and then go into theaters? It wasn't there like some sort of controversy why it was supposed to go into theaters, but then Amazon decided to do it.
There was
to
something,
stream it?
but I don't remember exactly what happened. I remember there was something about it going direct to streaming, and Doug Liman was really upset about it, but I don't remember exactly why
Yeah.
that happened. But I'm assuming because it didn't test well or something. I don't know.
Well, with your raving review, I'm still going to
Didn't
see
even
it.
make it to theaters though. Wow.
Yeah, you would think with a big star like that.
If we're going to do an episode, I say we do both versions. You guys got to watch the original
Yeah, I'll
classic.
watch the original.
All right.
Compare it.
And I'll watch this. Is it a reboot, I guess? It's not a sequel, is it?
I think it's
No,
just
I
a
think it's a
reboot, but I never
reboot.
watched the original,
Reboot,
so I don't
alright.
really know
Yeah.
the plot of the original besides he's a bouncer in a roadhouse.
All right. So if you're interested in hearing us talk about roadhouses, then let us know. Reach out to us on our socials or hit us up on Gmail at don'tencourage@gmail.com. Or just go to one of Matt's shows and hold up a sign. He'll get the message, get it back to us. That works. Speaking of which, Matt, you have anything on the agenda, any shows on your schedule, anything we should know about?
At the end of April, I am doing Gutenberg the Musical. It's a 2-person show about the printing press. So it's very Johann Gutenberg, not Steve
Great.
Gutenberg, Johann Gutenberg. And it's about these 2 guys who are trying to pitch a Broadway musical about the inventor of the printing press. So it's my brother and I, and we play like 25 characters between us.
25.
Wow.
And it's a musical, and then we switch characters by putting on hats. Like I play Gutenberg right now, and then his love interest is Helvetica, and we have a hat for her, and it's a really
Nice.
funny show.
Yeah.
Frederick,
All right.
Maryland.
Well,
Last
check
week
that
of
out.
April.
Where's it playing?
It's at the New Spire Art Center in Frederick, Maryland. Can't give free tickets this one.
Is there a website
Sorry.
for this location?
My last show, I was able to.
A website
What's
people
that?
could go to, or any way to get a ticket? Or
landlesstheatercompany.com, or just find Landless Theater on Facebook or Instagram.
Or check out the link on previous episodes that I added to the show notes.
There you go.
And I'll try to remember to do that this time.
But I'm currently on a break right now, and I went to go see a movie last night, preview performance of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And I don't know what your thoughts are on A, Ghostbusters, and B, did you see the one before that, The Afterlife?
All right, Steve. What's your
only saw
Ghostbusters
the original.
experience?
I haven't seen the reboots.
You've never seen any of the
Not that I
sequels?
recall. Maybe a long time ago. But
Not even part
maybe
2?
part 2. When did that come out?
In like the
Probably
90s.
part 2, yeah. But I don't remember seeing it.
Oh, man.
Wow.
How about you?
I thought I was with some Ghostbuster fans here.
That's awkward.
He was just
So
expecting me to be
awkward.
like, yeah, I've seen every one. And I was just
I was expecting
in the
my
theater by
favorite
myself
franchises.
watching the latest one. I was the only one in the theater.
Oh, yeah. So, longtime Ghostbusters fan here. I saw the original, the sequel. I watched the cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters.
Yep.
And I got halfway through the recent fraudulent sequel.
You didn't like it?
It's not so much that I didn't like it. It just didn't hold my attention. And that's kind of weird because you would think it would. It just didn't feel like Ghostbusters. I guess because the tone of the original was very like tongue-in-cheek, kind of comedy first.
Yeah.
Right. And the tone of the reboot, is at least as much of it as I saw, was a lot more like serious. And it was like they were doing Stranger Things light.
Yeah.
Instead of like a funny Ghostbusters thing. Like nobody thinks the ghosts are real. Like you're wasting your time. You know, like it's supposed to be funny. We all know they're not real. That's why Slimer works, because he's just goofy. He's just a goofy take on a ghost. So yeah, it just didn't.
See, I think you would like this one better.
Okay.
Because they start off right out the gate with busting ghosts.
Sweet.
The original cast has a bigger part too. Dan Aykroyd is probably, I would say, one of the lead characters.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I felt like the same with you with Afterlife, as I felt like it took an hour to get to Ecto 1 before any kind of ghost stuff was happening. And You're right, it was very serious. It had a more serious tone. This one, they definitely did not. They went the more comedic route. So you might actually like. Now, is it as good as the original first two? No, not even close. But it was very enjoyable. And if you go to a Regal movie theater, I'll be back in 1 second. Hold on.
Is he
going to Regal right now?
Is he going to get something?
Oh, there we go. Prop. Can we describe it to the audience?
You can get, this is
He's got a ghost trap.
Ghost trap.
Oh my God.
And you get your popcorn in it.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
So what does something like that set you back there, buddy?
It was like $25.
Wait, did you buy that?
So this is a $70 trip to the theater.
Wait, what?
No, I bought it. It's like and you put the popcorn in, and I'm sitting there.
Can you trap other people's popcorn?
You can trap other people. You could put
scare them and then catch the popcorn.
You could put jujubes and junior mints, everything.
If you got to pee in the middle of the movie,
you got to pee. It's big enough. If you got to do number 2, you can go right there. You don't want to miss a thing.
Slide that underneath, open the trap door.
Yeah, it's got wheels and everything.
I can't believe you
on the
bought
way out,
that.
put it in the containment chamber.
That's the part that I can't
Why
get
wouldn't
over.
I buy that?
I thought they would just give that to
because
you.
you're not a big. Well, why you can't? No. Why would you give this to you?
I don't know. What are you going to do with
It's all
that?
for. Well, it's going to be prominent in my background display at work. For catching ghosts, if I have a spirit or a specter.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I terrorizes my dog. That's always fun. He was not very happy with it.
He's just upset that you paid $25 for that thing.
But yeah, Ghostbusters is a big deal for me. It's one of my favorite movies, so I had to.
You had to have it.
Mark the occasion.
Yeah, classic prop.
Would you get the Dune 2 movie bucket? You've heard about those, right?
Yeah, the big worm or whatever. You stick your hand in to get popcorn.
And other things.
Do you cut out the bottom?
Things.
Hey, honey, would you check and see if there's any more popcorn down there?
The Dune bucket surprise.
Like, after the ghost trap? No.
After the ghost trap, no. We're done.
Did you guys see Dune 2?
I did. So I liked it better than the first one.
That's what everyone's saying.
I liked the first one too. It was it's such an epic movie. Like, I don't think I would have enjoyed it if I didn't watch it in a movie theater. So if you do see it, it's just the cinematography and the sound, and just the whole spectrometer, spectacle of it all was just really impressive. Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
No. Yeah.
I can't wait to see it.
Have you seen the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the first one in the theater.
Was it bored? Were you bored with it or something?
It was okay. No, yeah. I mean, I love the books. The original movie, I like it. It's a little bit weird. The pacing's a bit off on it, but there's a lot I like about it. The remake I thought was fine. I was a little bit like, I guess, so a problem for me if I already know the story, if I know the broad strokes,
Yeah.
then I tend to tune out a bit. You have to kind of work to hold my attention. Like I watched Game of Thrones and then I tried to read the novels and I was like, I already kind of know where a lot of this is going.
So-
And I know that some people that doesn't bother them, but for me, it was enough that for Dune, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, so this is pretty much what you would expect.
Right.
Based on the stuff that's already been done. I thought some of the design was cool, but there's a lot of drawings and things from the descriptions in the original novels. Like there's a whole universe there. And I think that stuff's even cooler than what's in the movie, at least the first one. But I do hear the second one's very, very good.
How many novels are there?
Yeah, what are there, 6 or 7?
Something
Let
like
me
that,
see.
yeah.
I lost track because I quit reading them after maybe Heretic. Let me see.
Are they all by the original author, or is it one of those series where other authors kind of took over and started expanding the universe?
6.
6 original
There
ones?
are 6.
But does any movie really compare?
Somebody else
To the
took
book?
over.
Yeah. Rarely. in
Well,
my
here's a
opinion.
question.
Nephew? Sorry,
Would
go ahead.
you rather read the book first, then see the movie, or see the movie, then read the book?
I would rather read the book first. I'm always book first over
Book first?
movie first, yeah.
Yeah, so I used to be very strongly in that camp, and I think there were a few movies where I saw the movie and then I read the book and I really enjoyed it. So I think I have to say it depends. I mean, generally, if someone said, what should I do? I would probably say, just to be safe, read the novel first.
Yeah,
but
that's
that's not
a-
always the best.
it's you can go. I go both ways.
I'll bet
I go
you
both
do.
ways. So they if you watch the movie and read the book is always more expansive. So it's almost like you have a basic knowledge of the book, and then you just kind of get like extra scenes essentially and extra input
Characters.
that you already know. On the other hand, if you see the movie first, when I read the book, I'm thinking of the actor, so I can't have that. I kind of lose that like if I read Dune now, I would think as Paul Atreides is Timothée Chalamet. So I wouldn't be able to get him out of my mind while reading. I mean, I can't get him out of my mind. Period.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
but especially when I'm reading the book.
Just walked right into that.
yeah,
didn't
Willy
you?
Wonka. Yeah, exactly. He set that one up and then
I
hit
did.
it on in.
And I knocked it down. I took I hit the joke.
You could see our faces. Yep. We were politely waiting. Yeah. Okay.
This podcast is like reading the book.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything on their list this week?
Besides Roadhouse
No, I don't think so.
and
Besides this League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Three Body
Yes.
Problem.
Just briefly. We're gonna. 3 Body Problem. We're thinking about doing an episode on that. So FYI. Small update on the orcas. Steve, you remember we talked about a news story
course.
last year? Yep. So I attended a lecture by a marine biologist who was recently hired by Spain, which is the coast where a lot of these attacks are occurring. Matt, if you're unaware of this, orcas have been, actually a specific group of orcas have been attacking rudders or props, I think it is, on yachts, on boats off the coast of Spain
Oh, no.
mostly. And doing damage, and actually even successfully, or not successfully, how do you want to phrase that? Accidentally sinking 2 or 3 boats. So no fatalities, but a lot of property damage.
Shit.
A lot of these boats are worth a lot of money. So the Spanish government hired a collection of marine biologists to come in and come up with alternatives to shotgunning all of them. It was an interesting lecture. The person who gave it explained that it's not a trauma response, which I think Steve and I sort of debated last time. It's a game. So the current thinking is one of them discovered that it's kind of fun to bat these little props around or these rudders back and forth, and that certain types of them make kind of a satisfying noise or motion when you do that. And then another group of juveniles, or the rest of the juveniles in that group, join in, and so now it's like a fun game they play. And they're worried that it'll spread to the rest of that group of orcas, and there are several other groups of orcas which are in that area at least some of the year. So they're worried it'll spread, and then it could become a really serious threat to orcas because people with yachts generally are not what's the word? Nature first, maybe? Is that the way to put that?
Sure.
So it wasn't an adult who was traumatized. That they are definitely sure is not true. It's just a game they're playing. So they have some interesting theories on how to dissuade them without causing serious injury. They're trying to prevent them from enjoying it, basically, have it not be fun and not worth the trouble. So thought that was kind of cool.
That's an interesting take on that, because I really thought it was the injured orca.
It's a compelling story, but there was some confusion in the media, even as to which orcas were involved. So that was sorted out. It was a great lecture. It was just lucky that it was in this area, and I was happy to attend. So learned a lot. Very cool.
That's great.
All right. Today's discussion, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, 2003, directed by Stephen Norrington, who was an ex-special effects guy who actually directed the original Blade film. Also a great movie.
Okay.
So some comic book movie history there. It stars Sean Connery, Stuart Townsend, who played Carl Kolchak in the 2005 Night Stalker reboot TV show. Shane West, who was on ER for a while. Petta Wilson, who was La Femme Nikita. Jason Fleming from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Deep Rising, one of our favorite films here on the show. Snatch, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. X-Men First Class, and Pennyworth. So I don't know if you guys recognized any of them from those other projects, but they've all been working. And it was based on graphic novels written by Alan Moore, author of The Watchmen, who is one of the modern literary geniuses out there. So this story is based on public domain characters. We talked about public domain a little while ago. Basically, when something has been published and it's been long enough. What is it, Steve? Do you remember? Is it 100 years?
I think it's 100 years.
100 years.
100 years, right?
Yeah.
So at 100 years, it becomes what's called public domain, meaning anybody can use that character. And most of us have seen that kind of thing before. You've seen like Dracula pop up in a lot of different novels, and you don't actually have to own the rights to Dracula to put him in a story. So the public domain characters and books that are highlighted in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the film, are Alan Quatermain from Haggard's 1885 novel King Solomon's Mines, and 17 other works, both novels and short stories. Dorian Gray from Oscar Wilde's 1890 novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Tom Sawyer from Mark Twain novels The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer Abroad, and Tom Sawyer Detective from 1896. Yeah, it's a real novel. Mina Harker from Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula. Dr. Henry Jekyll / Edward Hyde from Robert Louis Stevenson's 1886 novella Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Captain Nemo from Jules Verne novels 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and The Mysterious Island, and also Journey Through the Impossible. So character featured in 3 different novels. And Rodney Skinner, who replaced the character Griffin from The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Interesting side story. They didn't use Griffin from The Invisible Man because that character's rights were tied up due to a film being done, one of those sort of classic monster movies, The Invisible Man. So they created Rodney Skinner, the thief, who stole the formula from the scientist to replace him. Again, that's H.G. Wells. And then lastly, and this is a spoiler, so feel free to stop here if you really want to watch this film, Professor James Moriarty, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle for the Sherlock Holmes short stories. All right. So before we get into discussion, here's a brief premise. It's the start of the 20th century, a century where new technologies will transform human conflict. And this alternate history, an unknown force, is developing those technologies decades before the rest of mankind. The British government assembles 7 Victorian heroes to form the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, possibly their last hope for peace. So today I'll be defending my love of a fabulous movie against my arch nemesis, Matt Baughman, who hates everything good. But first, Steve, what do you think the story was?
The story, you mean like a plot summary? or in general?
What was the story? No, give
I
me a
can't
story,
tell
all
you.
the novels.
Of all, of the whole thing. A group of kind of like I guess like famous literary figures get assembled in order to save the world because they're pulled together by a guy called M, mysterious, shadowy figure, who tells them there's a guy named Phantom who's out there, and he has a plot to blow up I guess it's a conference with all the world leaders, I believe.
Peace conference.
Yeah, peace conference, and that's taking place in Venice, and all the heroes get together and they go to try and stop this from happening, and then there's a twist involved where it's not actually what's going on. And that's the basic plot summary.
I can feel your love for this film.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fine.
I'm surprised you didn't add, and I got a sandwich, and then there were some explosions. Woke up briefly from my nap.
Some details that happen in between, but it's not really that important. I don't want to ruin anything.
Yeah, you're right. It's not important. None of this movie is important.
Wow.
It's not awful.
Amazing.
I saw Roadhouse, so I'm like comparing it to Roadhouse.
Yeah,
I'm like, this is a cinematic spectacular. This is like incredible.
How do you want to do this? Do you want to do this like
the hard way,
style,
or
where I go first? The hard way or the easy way? So do you want to do this court style, where I go first and then you go next?
Well, let's talk about it, right? So
prosecution.
Overall, initial impressions, what I'm hearing is I loved it. Matt hated it with his black soul. And Steve, you're sort of in the middle?
Yeah, I think right now I'm in the middle.
You're Switzerland?
It's entertaining enough. Like I don't feel like I wasted my time watching it. I watched Roadhouse and feel like I can't get that time back. So
did you watch Roadhouse first before this?
No, I watched Roadhouse afterwards. I don't know what would have happened or what my opinion would have been if I wouldn't have watched Roadhouse. No, I don't think it's a horrible. I thought the acting was good. I thought there were a lot of I thought the editing was kind of a mess overall.
Yes.
Matt just had a stroke.
Yeah, what happened?
When you said the acting was good.
Wait, you thought the acting was terrible?
Oh, it wasn't great. First off, Shane West. I actually like Shane West from A Walk to Remember with Mandy Moore and all the teen movies. He was horrendously miscast in this part. I don't find Tom Sawyer to be this heartthrob character who comes in and like whips his hair around.
But what do we think of Tom Sawyer as? Like, what would you?
Yeah,
I guess I kind of see him as just kind of like, I'm Tom Sawyer. I
from the Bronx.
Yeah, he's from the Bronx. I row a boat.
This podcast is going to take a turn.
So I'm walking here. Hey.
I'm walking here.
Hey,
Sean Connery looked like he was like done with it halfway through the film. Like, I don't care anymore.
Fun fact,
alert,
he kind of was.
Scene, yeah.
He constantly fought with the director.
And this was his last movie.
His last
on-screen
film.
appearance.
Connery's last film, yeah.
He was like, okay, I've done everything. I've done the worst thing I can do.
And
I'm leaving.
But it's kind of his fault,
I'll just do.
Because he could have been, he was supposed to be cast in Harry Potter, and he turned it down. Because he didn't.
Oh, I thought it was Lord of the Rings.
Oh, Lord of the Rings.
Too.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Was it Lord of the Rings? Yeah. And The Matrix, too, I heard.
Uh-huh.
He turned both those down. And then he said...
yeah, the architect or whatever.
Something like that.
It might have been all three, actually.
Yeah.
It might be Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and The Matrix that he turned down. And he went with this one, which is kind of...
Because he had accomplished everything that he wanted to in film. This was the crowning jewel, right? This was the final best, the last piece, some bit of acting he hadn't done. And he pulled it together. And I think he's great in this film. Absolutely.
He is the best part.
Right.
But that is a very low bar.
He's one of the best parts.
He was the best part. He was the only good. He was the only part.
Right up there with several other best parts. I agree.
I thought all the actors didn't know what movie they were in. Like, they were all playing different styles. Like, the guy who played Skinner seemed like, well, that's another thing. Hold up. So, this is not his fault. This is not the actor's fault. But he's supposed to be invisible. And then sometimes he puts on the white makeup and you could see nothing. He's like, okay, this is CGI. But then he's walking around. He looks like a full-blown human with just white makeup on. There's
what
no...
is he supposed to be?
Well, he's supposed to be invisible. It looks like he's literally...
He's wearing
clothes. He's
clothing.
got clothes on.
But you could tell he's not invisible. You could tell it's an actual person.
Under the clothes?
Am I going crazy
I think
here?
you're going
Do you know
crazy,
the
yeah.
difference between intangible and invisible?
He has
Well, no, I
clothes
know what
on,
you're
so
talking
you can
about.
tell there's a body underneath.
So
I understand,
They
but I'm just
make
talking
him
about
visible.
his face.
okay,
Like makeup
yes.
does not, he looked like a human person with wearing white makeup. He didn't look like an invisible person wearing white makeup. I guess I'm alone in my principles on this
Is there?
one.
Yeah.
Can we cue some crickets here? So what would be the difference between a human who's invisible but has something on their skin versus a human
You can tell it's
who
different.
is
okay?
visible and has the same
I'm
thing on
talking
their
about the
skin?
special effects, right?
Okay.
So you know when he first comes on the scene, he starts putting on
Uh-huh.
the makeup first, and then it's just you could tell his face looks completely different. But then when he's in another scene and they're not doing that effect, it's just the actor wearing white makeup. You could tell it's an actual person.
Oh, you're saying
Like the back
CGI...
of his head? Like he didn't put makeup
Yes,
on the back of
everything. Well, yeah, they didn't. It just what I'm saying is the CGI didn't match the person.
The face
when
they
the
made
actor-
up
Yes.
looks different than the actor's
I see.
face. Is
Exactly.
what he's saying.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. That is very specific.
It's very.
Uh,
I'm sorry. It was extremely distracting.
No, hey, that's why we bring you on, just
And
to confuse us.
Normally, like I don't really care about that stuff.
it. Normally,
I don't, I'm
Clearly.
like I kind of like. Normally, I don't. I,
Does
I,
it
you know,
ever achieve normally?
but this movie, I want to pick it apart. So people, and I'm not alone here.
please do.
People,
Please do.
I just want to let you know, if you look at the critical consensus, it's 17%.
Okay,
I'm not-
fine. Let's
I'm
talk
not-
about that. First of all,
Yeah.
critics suck. They hate everything.
Okay.
You're in good company. Second of all, this movie came out at the same time as Pirates of the Caribbean.
Which is a
right?
far better movie, yes.
It is a very good movie. It is also a best movie. I agree. But that movie just ate up all the attention, right? And if you look at critics, they didn't like comic book movies. They still don't. This is a comic book movie. The critics are never going to rate that highly. They think it's beneath them.
That's not true. Because
is
if
true.
you look at all the Marvel movies now, they're all higher than 17%.
Okay, up to this point in time. It's
Yeah.
2003, right? Comic book movies rarely get good reviews, only certain ones for very specific reasons. I would say this comic book movie is as good or better than most of the comic book movies up to that point in time, with a couple exceptions. And this is the only one that really successfully tackles a team of superheroes effectively.
I don't know. I can't. I'm trying to think of other superhero movies before that time. I know. When did Spider-Man come out? It was probably after this. It was probably after
Right
this.
before it,
Well,
I
but that's
believe.
not a group,
I think
right?
it's 2002.
That's not a group.
very-
No, you're right. You're right.
2002,
You're right.
I think it came out.
2002.
Spider-Man.
So they
I
did
believe.
do a good
I'm not,
Superman.
you know,
Well, but all right. Listen, no argument here. All right.
But
I
what
was gonna
about all
kinda
the
save
Batman
this-
movies? And
Again, not a team.
not a
film.
team. You're right. But
right?
you mentioned before this was all superhero movies are bad.
I said most, right? I said
Okay.
most, right? There are a few good, sort of well-received, even, obviously critically better received comic book films up to this point, but not a lot, because they were still figuring out the formula that later became Avengers. And
Okay.
this is very much a proto-Avengers. If this film had a bigger budget, it would be essentially almost exactly Avengers, right? And
Oh,
also,
boy.
by
Oh,
the
boy.
way, what makes this film better, and I think a better investment, is that they didn't have to make 6 prequel movies first. They took advantage very cleverly of existing material to
Yes.
avoid doing 6 origin films and bringing them together. And I think part of what hurt this movie is that a lot of the audience had not read that original material, and all they had was a vague understanding of these characters at best, which meant that they needed to introduce them and explain them a little bit better, because people just don't read. They don't
No.
read that much.
you-
These were all classics
did you read the
that
graphic
high
novel
school kids read.
before you saw it?
I read part of it. It's a very different, no, not before. I think that would have annoyed me. That's a very different audience for that, for sure.
I'm not arguing the premise is really good. Like it's actually a really cool premise, and I agree with you that they're using all this existing source material and making it into a movie. I don't think it's a bad premise at all. I'm talking about the execution of it was really poorly done. Like I think, like if they did a remake of this, I would be happily go see it.
Yes, agreed. I would love to see a sequel.
Yes.
Exactly what you just said.
Well, maybe not a sequel, but a reboot. I would go see it, definitely.
All right, so let's talk about point by point. All right, so the action. In my mind, the action in this movie is very similar to the Avengers, which I think it made over $1 billion, right? So that's a great ingredient. They don't take it too seriously, but they don't not take it seriously. It's fun. I think Sean Connery's Alan Quartermain is the only character that really doesn't hit the tone right. I think he's playing it a bit too seriously and too earnestly, and I think that hurts the film just a bit because it's a different style. But they're very much leaning toward what we get in Avengers down the road. So a lot of fun, thrilling action. Every character has a unique fighting style. I love it. So thoughts on the action?
I have to disagree with that. I thought the action was probably the worst part of this movie. I felt like the movie fell apart completely when they went to Venice with the car chase scene. I don't think they have roads like that in Venice, but whatever. And that boat going down the Nile River or whatever that river was, I don't think that would fit. But regardless, that's not action. I will say that the action choreography was so sporadic and so jumbled, and you couldn't tell what was going on. There was no story within the choreography. And I think whenever they did kind of like I will say the Captain Nemo with his sword fighting scenes were good.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't recommend this just because of the action at all. And I think it's an insult to say that these were as good as the Avenger movies, action wise. I have to disagree
budget.
with you.
On a lower budget. Steve, you want to?
If we weren't on video right now, I think this would be a duel. You two be walking away from each other off screen. I think the action scenes, I would agree, they were pretty much a mess. The editing was a disaster.
Boo.
The editing was so bad for those scenes. It was
so choppy.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that I looked into, like, what was going on with the editing in general, and it was the director's fault. He just kept shooting all these improvised setups. Apparently, like he was doing 10 to 12 setups when typically a Hollywood movie does 2 to 3 setups, and the cast was like exhausted already, and he would have these ideas, and on a whim he would just try to execute on them. Oh, why don't we just get everyone to stand on this side of the room and then move to this side of the room, when they had blocked a very specific choreography or specific scene. So when it came time to edit it, it was a complete mess. And actually Sean Connery and the editor were the main editors on the film, because the director stepped away. Yeah. It was a mess.
He like produced it too, right? He was a producer.
Yeah, but he was furious because he kept getting into fights with the director, like nonstop. Yeah. Like they couldn't get along at all.
I don't think he directed anything after this, right?
He walked away from Hollywood after this. He was fed up with the whole process. But the fact that he wasn't really involved in the final edit, I mean, you can kind of tell with those, especially in the fight scenes, like they're just all over the place. You can't really tell what's going on. There's no like cohesion or choreography like you would see in, like, I don't know, a movie that comes to mind is like Old Boy, right? That really planned out choreographed fight scenes that you can really follow. This was just like characters everywhere, like things that you can't really see, tight shots for no apparent reason on areas of the scene that like don't make sense. And it was just like really disconcerting, like really kind of jarring, I'd say. Also,
yeah, and unrealistic. The scene where they're driving through Venice and he's speeding through, probably going about 75, 80 miles an hour. They're just literally just jumping out of their car and landing on the feet. Even Sean Connery just jumps out of the car and lands on his feet.
You mean Alan Quartermain has learned how to jump out of a speeding object,
at 75?
And land on his feet in a balanced way. It's look, if you don't like comic book action, then I understand your complaint.
No, I love comic book action, but
It's suspension of disbelief in this case, though. I got to go with Jason here on this one. Like,
Oh, okay,
that's why I'm
Switzerland.
here.
Keep on
But
going.
that's why I'm
Steve
here.
makes
That's
sense.
why
Flip-flopper.
they call me the voice of reason, and where I hear reason, I go to that side of the screen. Go ahead.
Oh.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the writing, okay?
Cool.
I think there was good foreshadowing in this, right? So, you, for example, you get early shots of the son's grave, right? Quartermain's son who died beginning of the film is in Africa, for those of you who haven't seen it. And there's a small sort of graveyard with wooden graves, and Quartermain is there, right? So that foreshadows Quartermain's end because he ends up in that same graveyard. And also it lays some of the groundwork for his relationship with Tom Sawyer, that sort of surrogate son thing. I think they had a lot of good moments like that where they set up future action. It kind of flows nicely. Quartermain is our point of view character, which I think was a great choice. I think a lot of writers would have gone with Tom Sawyer, but I think Quartermain's a little bit better because he represents the old guard, and these are at the turn of the century. These are sort of the new, younger faces that are going to be the future, and that fits nicely with the theme of new technologies and all the exciting events that we all know happen in the 20th century. So I think that was really great. And there was a really deep mythology, right? So they took advantage of actual history and fictional history that they added to the story. Just quickly, for example, there's 2 upcoming world wars that are just like specters hanging over this film constantly. You see some of the technology. They reference some of the nations involved, right? Some of the locations in the world. I thought that really added a lot of depth to the story and a lot of impact without having to write a lot of exposition. There was a history implied between Mina and Dorian, which I think added a lot because there isn't a lot of time to develop characters in a team superhero film. So they never really get into it too explicitly, but it's clearly there and it's an important part of their arcs. And then also, and I don't know if you guys caught this, but in the initial introduction of the League members, there are paintings in the background that have prior League members in them, right? Did you guys notice that?
I didn't catch that.
No.
Yeah, so in the background when M is saying, hey, there's this league and we're recruiting you, there's like a medieval league, there's like a 17th century league, there's like another one from a different time period, and those paintings all have other public domain characters in them, like the
That's
Three
clever.
Musketeers and Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels and Robin Hood and characters like that. So I think that kind of writing is amazing, right? And some of that's from the comics and a lot of it isn't. So what do you guys think about the writing?
I will give it this. It was the best element I felt in the movie was the writing. I felt like like I said, I really felt when they got to Venice, the movie just fell apart. I think the twist, I didn't see the twist coming. I didn't know it was Professor Moriarty. You know who it is? What is it?
Marmalade?
Moriarty. I can't even say it.
Moriarty.
What the Sherlock Holmes character? Moriarty.
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 There you go.
I didn't see that coming. Like the setup of recruiting the team, I really enjoyed that part actually. And I remember thinking, because I saw this movie when it came out in the theaters, and I thought it was why it spawned this episode. I thought it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And then when I was watching it, I thought, you know what? Maybe I was wrong about this. I am kind of enjoying this.
That's it. That's it from Matt. That's a wrap from Matt. Thanks.
Do you want me to mute him? I'll mute him.
My biggest critique about the writing is I felt like it was I thought it was there was not enough lightness to them for being a superhero, quote unquote superhero movie. There was not a lightness. There was no quips. There were character
quips.
There. Not a time.
quips.
Well, they weren't very good quips at that.
Dorian Gray had good quips.
There were some.
He
Yes,
had some good
thank
ones.
you.
He had some nice little. I can't
There
remember
was a
it
little,
right now, but they were nice. I remember
Back and
enjoying
forth
There
with
was a couple.
Mina shutting
Mhm.
down Tom Sawyer. There was some quippiness there.
Yeah.
And I think it was just kind of like, and is Tom Sawyer part of the graphic novel?
No,
Yeah, they threw him in, right?
Correct.
And he did seem kind of out of place.
that was for
And I
American
think it was-
audiences.
That's what I heard. So I felt like his character was kind of useless, but I did kind of like the father and son aspect of it. But this is not a writing issue, but I felt like those two didn't really have good chemistry, a good father-son chemistry, but that's not the writing's fault. Or maybe it is. Maybe it's a little writing's fault. But the character development was not great. And I know you can't have a ton when you have these many characters. But there was no emotional weight. You weren't really rooting for them. You didn't really feel that bad against, you didn't feel like the bad guy was that bad.
Wow.
You didn't,
Black heart.
There was no like emotional connection.
Who hurt you?
To anything here, like good or bad.
So hold on. I'm sorry. So when Skinner got burned trying to save his teammate, after that whole film of them doubting him and him being a thief and a smartass, and he runs up and stabs the back of a flamethrower canister naked and burns, you were like, whatever. That's fine.
Yeah, because I didn't care about him.
Because you couldn't see him, right?
Oh, that...
Yeah, you couldn't see
Something
it.
is broken.
No, I didn't care about any of them. I didn't care about any of them.
Is it because you didn't get like a little League of Extraordinary Gentlemen popcorn holder? Is that the problem here? Did you want a little Nemo car that you could eat your jujubes out of?
Some kid bought the last one, but in the line in front of him.
No, I felt nothing. Like when Sean Connery died, his death scene was so bad too. I felt like he was like, I'm done with this movie. Let me just die. I felt like that was, and the whole like, you just got to wait. Take your time. Take your time. That's my Sean Connery impression. Take your time.
No, that's what
Take
that
your
is.
time. It was just dumb. It was just dumb, and it was too. It wasn't light enough, and it was too serious.
Yeah,
What do you guys
cats in the cradle over here?
What do you guys think about this movie in the sense that it's just assuming that the audience recognizes all the characters that are in the lead
and read those books? Which I think if you were familiar with at least most of the books, then that gives the stories a lot of emotional weight. And I just don't think I don't think kids grow up reading the same books anymore.
You don't. I remember when I saw this, the only character I knew, when I first saw it in the theater, the only character I ever heard of was Tom Sawyer.
But that's a significant problem, right? If you walk into a theater
it's an obstacle,
you're like, oh, there's these random cast of characters here. I know they're literary figures, but I don't really know anything about them, like Dorian Gray, right? Like I knew right away when we were watching it, like, oh, what does he represent? Who is this guy? You know? And if I didn't, he would just be like a snarky, aristocratic British guy, right? We would just really lose a lot.
And I didn't really understand his motivation through the movie. Maybe I'm dumb. I just didn't get, like, I don't know why he turned
if you read the
bad.
original novel, he's an hedonist. And at the beginning, he's just this young, particularly attractive, noble, British guy. And he sells his soul. He wishes to be immortal. And I'm not going to go through the whole story, but basically over the course of the novel, he tries all these different sins. Like he just indulges in different kinds of pleasures. And then at the end, he comes to regret it and it destroys himself, essentially. And the painting, every time he does something bad, the painting alters itself to show essentially like...
it's like his damaged soul, like his corrupted soul.
Well, yeah, but it's like a picture of him, and it changes to show how bad he is, like what a bad person he is. So the facial expression and different qualities, and as he ages, he doesn't show it, but the painting does, and things like that. So they altered it a little bit, but that's more than enough background to explain this character who's in sort of the middle of that arc, why it would interest him to get involved in something as unique as Moriarty's plan, right? Like it's a new hedonistic experience for him to have, or hedonistic experience for him to have. So he wants to try it. He doesn't really care about anything else, right? And he doesn't take life seriously.
So this whole, his heel experience was just for pleasure, just for like fun.
His what experience?
There was no other.
He's the ultimate hedonist, basically.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
And I think that's a problem. So I think if somebody went to go see Avengers and they had not seen any of the previous films, nor had they read the comics, and they were only vaguely familiar with the idea of superheroes, then it'd be like, yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's fine. You know, there were a couple parts that were kind of interesting and kind of funny, which I maintain is exactly the same for this film. So let's talk about a good moment in this film. All right. Exposition, classic comic book trope, right? Where the villain reveals his plot. And typically it's kind of pointless. Like, why would they do that? And more than a cliche, right? It almost now stands out as stupid. But they wove it into this film in a way that I thought was incredibly impactful. Like, they slowed down the film. They did this cool, he mixed the sound in a really interesting way. He wove in Hyde, right? And the villain just lays out his plan, but it was important to the story. It was actually a critical part of the plot, what was going on beneath that. And I thought that was an amazing moment in the film.
You mean we're showing like how he's grabbing everyone's DNA and how he's like that whole thing?
Yeah, where the record is playing and the crystal sensors on the bomb are detecting
that was
the
really
high-pitched...
clever.
That
was really, really clever. I like that.
Excellent.
Yes, I would admit
that's better than
good.
anything in the Avengers movie.
It reminded me of the intro of The Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
The movie.
I actually,
which I really
now,
enjoyed.
do you like The Watchmen?
I do.
I love the Watchmen comics. Yeah, the movie's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like The Watchmen too, but that's also one of those movies like this is where they didn't think the execution was very good from the graphic novel.
So you hate
but
it.
I never read the graphic novel.
The graphic novel is on a
it.
whole nother level.
Yeah. I like the movie. I didn't have an issue with that movie.
But you should read the comic. The graphic novels are really, really good. I mean, but they're more like, it's like when I read Dracula, right? Like I had realized in my 20s I never read it, so I went back and grabbed a copy. And when you read something by choice and it's not crammed down your throat by school, you don't have a quiz every Friday, it kind of hits different, you know? And I would recommend Watchmen because I think it's basically exactly on that level. There's so many different elements that come together in really, really brilliant ways. So, the movie is a whole nother animal.
I'd also recommend Dracula as a novel. It's
great.
Really great.
Oh,
fantastic.
Yeah,
way better than any adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
No, what do you think of Mina Harker becoming a vampire in this?
I think it fits perfectly. I think it works. Works great. Ideal. Excellent
In the
idea.
novel, she was really fascinated in the idea. In the novel, right? From what I recall, she was really fascinated with the idea of like, it was a very like super seductive to her. And that was like the whole, through line for her character. So her becoming
in this
one
film
doesn't seem that
she's
crazy.
She's come to regret that. She feels like a monster. And it adds a lot of depth if you remember the original novel, which no one does because very few people before this film came out read that stuff. So they're not familiar with the background that gives this team movie where they all come together so much extra heart and depth.
Yes.
Also, there's a really cool large-scale installation assault at the end, like classic Bond movies, and exactly like the end of the Avengers movies as well. Except it's not in an installation.
What do you mean installation?
It's a comic book movie. It's a team comic book movie. So how does it end, right?
Yeah.
You gotta have a bunch of people to fight, right? And a lot of Bond movies end with Bond. It's all about him throughout the film, right? And at the end, British military or whoever he's recruited all rush into the villain's lair and they have a big installation fight, right? Where the good guys are assaulting this moon base or underwater base or cave base or whatever, island, volcano base. And that's what they did, which I thought was an awesome homage to Connery and classic comic book.
That's the problem with this movie. I just watched it 3 hours ago and I can't remember that.
So you remember at the end, okay, so Act 3, they arrive in Mongolia and
who is they?
Who is they? The League.
I'm just kidding. I was just trying to explain it to Matt.
So the League arrives at Moriarty's base where he has scientists building some nautiloid, like some more submarines, and they have all the different formulas and they're trying to make invisible men and all this kind of stuff, right? And the good guys sort of sneak in and Nemo's crew come with them, and in order to rescue the scientists and kill all the henchmen, they have this big installation assault, which is super cool. and fits perfectly.
So you keep on saying installation. I don't know what that means.
Steve, you want to?
What does that installation mean?
Installation is like a complex, like a factory
Base?
type complex.
Like a base.
Would probably be
Oh.
another way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Base assault.
Installation.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So I think the writing's
So
good.
that happens in Bond movies?
Quite a bit.
All the
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Yeah. He's always about to, like, especially in the classic 1960s Bond movies.
Sean Connery Bond, you mean?
Exactly. When he's about to get cut in half by like a laser or something. And he's like, what do you want me to do? What's going on or whatever? He's like, I expect you to die, Mr. Bond. The classic villain
Ooh,
line.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the bad guys have a lair. And, you know,
Chad,
we're over-explaining this. It's a base. A bunch of military guys attack.
Yeah, I know. I
Okay.
get that. Yeah. Don't worry, I get
Moving
that.
on. All right. So you mentioned this a couple times. I want to touch on it. I actually thought the production design was really, really good. Venice is gothic and extreme. It's not real Venice. Obviously, this is a comic book movie, right? So they took Venice and they turned it into something out of The Dark Knight. Like, it's just this weird, exaggerated, exactly how an artist would draw it if they were trying to draw it as like a gothic, exaggerated cityscape, right? So yeah, I get it. It's not laid out that way and the canals aren't that way. This is a fictional alternate universe. You know, there are a lot of things that are different here. That was intentional. I don't know why people, I saw it online as well, thought Venice should look like normal Venice.
Because I'll tell you, Africa looked like normal
Oh
Africa.
my God.
And
Is that what you think
and
Africa looks like?
well, it wasn't cartoonish though.
It was exaggerated. It was an exaggerated view of Africa. It absolutely was.
I don't think
It's
that.
the same thing with London in the beginning. It was an exaggerated
Like,
view of London with the
all
bobbies running
of
around
Africa
and the
is just
sticks.
plains, like plains
sand.
for miles
no,
away.
no,
And just like
but I'm just saying there was
white
more
people
realistic
drinking
than
a lion,
it was.
top hats.
No, what happened was Venice. It's like once they hit Venice, like we're in Sin City right now. It's
just
it was
that
completely
Venice,
different.
Venice is more constructed, right? Africa was exaggerated by flattening it out, right? Not literally, but metaphorically. Like, it was stripped of features, right? Which is very comic book and certainly very turn of the century European view of Africa. Venice, on the other hand, was extreme. It was a built city with lots of architecture. And so the buildings were taller and closer and the canals were exaggerated. It was very like, we briefly see, I think, Paris when Hyde is running on the roofs, and you see it's all exaggerated Paris. London is
That's true.
It's all
Yeah, that's true.
cobblestones and Keystone Cops, right? It's classic, or bobbies, whatever they're called, right? It's exaggerated comic book production design, and I love it. And Nemo's car, I think, was awesome. And the Nautilus with all of the references to Indian culture and gods, right? Straight out of a European's view of that from the novels. I love that. I love the paper snowstorm in Dorian's library, which I'm sure you guys hated because you already said it was too jilted and you couldn't follow or whatever. But the idea that, this giant library would just spray papers, classic comic book. And if that's not your thing, that's fine. But this was an early attempt at what we all came to know and love in phase 1 of the MCU.
I mean, that didn't bother me. The production design didn't really bother me at all. The Nautilus was really cool. The
car was awesome.
The fighting scene with the paper, that was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that was not. I noticed it, which was I guess it was kind of cool.
It was the fighting.
It was the fighting. It wasn't that. Yeah, exactly. Okay. It was just it was the fighting and the editing, which was the problem with it. With most of this movie was the fighting and the editing was pretty bad in this movie.
So writing, ding. Production design, ding.
No, I'm not saying the writing was a ding. Writing was like more like a ding. It was like a half ding. Ding.
Okay. Well, what other criticisms did you have, or Steve, if you had any criticisms?
I'm not gonna say there was not one specific element that was super bad, except I would say the editing was not that great. Like, I didn't think the acting was terrible. It fit the movie itself, I guess. It was just boring. That's the biggest part. It just was not entertaining.
It was exciting. I didn't think you didn't have the backdrop to like Like when something wasn't blowing up, you were probably bored because you didn't understand the subtext.
No, false. I thought the non-fighting scenes were the best part of the movie. It was the fighting scenes that I thought were the most boring part. I mean, I may look like a dumb guy, but I do. I agree. When I first saw the movie, I didn't know any of the characters, but now seeing it as 20 years later, I do know. I have a more reference. I knew who Dorian Gray was. I knew who Mina Harker was. I knew all the characters, so I did appreciate that more. And that's why I said I like the beginning part of where they're recruiting the gang. Like, oh, there's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I know this now. But I'm just saying it could have been a much better movie. And I think that's why I'm bashing it so much, because it had so much potential.
There's a lot of hindsight 2020 going on
there we go.
On this one.
Oh, yeah, there you go. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean there I go?
No, I want to know. I want to hear what you're saying.
No, I was just going to say that, I mean, for its time, like if you look at it, for when it came out, from that perspective, I think it's a very different way of viewing this film. Like now we've gone through the entire MCU, you've got Avengers, and I think there's no way to not compare it against that, but that's not fair to the movie itself.
Yeah, you're right.
But I can't watch it for the first time 20 years ago. That's the problem. And I think with you guys, it's pretty clear the way Jason's viewing it is before all of that. It's the precursor movie that kind of launched that. Kind of like when we were talking about this when we did the Notorious episode. Right? We're so used to this film noir, kind of this kind of dark detective thriller. Well, that didn't exist. So we had to look at that movie for its time. I remember I kept thinking while I was watching, it's like, what existed at this time period? Nothing like it. So it was completely revolutionary. The acting style, the plot itself, even though it seems simplistic, I was just trying to put myself in the shoes of someone of that time period, of the 40s, what this would have been like. And it would have been kind of mind-blowing. And I think for this film, in a lot of ways, I think for someone in 2003 watching this type of film for the first time, I think it would have been very, very different. I mean, I don't know for sure, but
Yeah, Jason, I mean, what I do, I saw this movie in 2003, and I can't tell you what I thought about back then.
But you were missing,
I could say,
some references, I think, to what you're saying.
That's true.
Now,
I was missing
right?
a lot of references.
And Jason was looking at it with those references in mind, right? Like in terms of the novels and like who Dorian Gray was, yeah. So you guys are looking at it from such different perspectives, which is fascinating. So continue.
Okay, so
but wasn't I the core demographic at that time?
Yeah, I mean that's the problem.
22 years old.
That's a problem. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
But the same audience who didn't get this movie because they didn't read those novels, right? Read comic books. So, what a decade later, when was Avengers roughly? So like 15 years later, something
like that. Yeah, 2010,
decade later,
something like that. Yeah,
right? They were wide open to exactly the same ideas. Like, for example, this film, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, mixes supernatural and super science seamlessly in the same universe, and nobody goes, that doesn't make sense, it's weird, whatever, right? You have Mina Harker and Nemo go up side by side, and at no point do you go, that's weird. But people didn't like it then because they weren't thinking about it like they were thinking about Thor and Iron Man. But then Avengers comes out and they're like, how are they going to mix Thor and Iron Man? Like those are two totally different backgrounds for their powers, right? Already been done. And you mentioned the graphic novels, and I know Alan Moore was upset with this film because he likes to make really disturbing stuff. But if you're going to take stuff that's hardcore and you're going to make it a family friendly, for a larger audience, then you got to make the hard choices that they made for this film. So I think this is just Avengers, and it didn't make $1 billion because it didn't have a big enough budget. It came out against Pirates of the Caribbean, which is obviously horrible, and because people weren't primed yet to be excited about this kind of a movie, right? Iron Man got everybody excited about seeing the Avengers eventually. These novels could have served the same purpose, but I don't think very many people read them.
Yeah, right. I never knew it was a novel or a graphic novel before this.
Well, I don't mean the graphic novels. I mean, the graphic novels are fine, right?
The
but that's a different
background of each
audience.
character.
I'm talking about the novels and the short stories.
Those stories, yeah.
I mean,
No,
like
you're right.
Moriarty, right? It fits perfectly, right? He fakes his own death, or it seems like he died along with Sherlock Holmes. And then when it turns out neither one of them died, Moriarty leaves London. He decides to set his eyes on bigger things, world politics and arms deal. I mean, it's a perfect evolution for that character in a comic book setting. It makes total sense, right? But a lot of people don't even read the short stories, the Sherlock Holmes stuff, which is amazing, by the way. So this is probably one of the best team superhero movies prior to the MCU.
But isn't this the only one?
I think there were
Because that's what you were
there
saying.
were some
You-
TV
you're-
movies and stuff, but in terms of great movies, yes, this is the only one.
I don't know. I mean, I'll wave my white flag.
Well, just give
I
it
am
one
not a
more
good-
watch.
No way.
Give it a shot.
Done.
Go read all the novels and give it one more watch. It's a great
Give it
film.
one more watch.
If you like the MCU, this is the movie for you. Maybe not the latest phase of the MCU, but phase 1 and phase 2, right? If you want to see the prototypes, the attempts to get the formula right, go read at least the Wikipedia summary of some of the novels and short stories about like Alan Quartermain and some of these other great characters, and then watch the film and ask yourself if that evolution of that character makes sense in a comic book setting, and if the art design, including the cities, makes sense as a comic book movie setting, an exaggeration and stylistically. You can even go back and read the original graphic novels, although they're very different. I think the villains are like the aliens from, what's that? They did a radio program about it and people thought it was real. What was that one with the
War of the Worlds?
tripod? War of the Worlds.
Worlds.
It's the aliens from War of the Worlds, or like the bad guys or whatever. But still good stuff. Go check it out and then give this one another watch, or a first time watch if you're listening and you haven't seen this. Solid film. Just, didn't quite have the budget, and there are a couple places they hadn't quite figured out the formula yet, but otherwise excellent all around.
And if you want good advice, I would say, yes, read the short stories, read the books of the core characters, and then instead of watching A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, maybe watch a trailer, get a taste of it, and then just go watch the MCU movies or Batman or anything else besides
Or
that.
just
You
listen
don't
to this
want to waste 2
podcast
hours of
again.
your life. Listen to this podcast. Yeah, it's
True,
about
the
there
same
might be
link.
some entertainment value.
Right.
Yeah,
You try to keep
and
them
go
short
watch
and sweet.
Transformers while you're at it.
Oh, God.
That I would agree with. Go watch that. That's a
See,
great
why
one.
don't? That's what I'm saying. You think Transformers is such a pile of crap.
Transformers 2
I don't
is the
understand.
worst movie ever made.
Well, I'm not talking about Transformers 2.
Okay,
I'm not
original
talking about
Resident
original
Evil.
Transformers.
Original
Slightly
recipe.
better.
Amazing. Can't go wrong with that one.
Transformers 1 is considerably better than this movie.
Oh, that just
That's
breaks
another
my heart.
episode
Yeah.
altogether.
That's another one. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Roadhouse
We
1
do the
versus
Roadhouse
two.
ones, and then we go to Transformers.
So
Double trouble.
delete, unsubscribe
Yep.
right now, everybody. So, Steve, what would you do with this intellectual property? League of Extraordinary Gentlemen drops into your hands. Maybe you're dating Alan Moore, and he gifts it to you for Christmas. What would you do with this intellectual property? Actually, he wouldn't celebrate Christmas, would he? It would probably be some pagan holiday or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, he gives it to you. What are you going to do with the League? Where do they go next?
I mean, I think it would be perfect for a series. Like, there's so
Yeah,
many
I was
ways
thinking
to
the same
take this.
thing.
There's so many great backstories to each one of the characters. It's like, I think it,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it writes itself, because,
Mm-hmm.
but I think, I think it would be a great episodic series where each episode's a new adventure, and focuses in on one character. I mean, they could, it could also be a series more like, let's say, Game of Thrones or something, where there's one big through line, or maybe there's a league of villains that they're constantly fighting. But it would be so entertaining, I think, to have something like that. I think I wouldn't just turn it into like another movie, because I think one of the flaws with a movie like this is that each character is so rich, has so much history, that when they're all put together in a movie setting, there's just not enough time to really develop each one of those characters, which is, I think, a flaw in just having a standalone movie. Even with the Avengers in the MCU, I think you could turn that into a series, and I think it would be really, really entertaining.
Nice. Matt, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think a series would be really cool because that way, if you didn't want to read the source material, you have more time where you can go back and see how Mina became a vampire. And you could kind of spend more time with Dorian Gray and how what other different types of, sadistic stuff that he did for pleasure kind of thing. Just give them more of a backstory and then do that over like a 10-episode season. I think that would be really cool.
All right.
Who would you cast in it now?
Are we
Like, as
using
the
the same characters?
Yeah, using the same characters. Who would you cast?
Oh, man.
That's a difficult question that I just threw out there.
Well, that's good, though. I don't know. Gosh.
Like Tom Sawyer, I think I see like
Just
Tom
You
Holland.
just use the
as Tom.
cast of the Avengers.
All right.
Okay, I
Just
don't know.
reuse them.
I'll watch them do anything.
It works. Just copy
Why
and
not?
paste.
Yeah.
Right?
Florence Pugh is Mina Harker. She'd be good.
Uh-huh. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or really anyone else. I mean, so these characters,
Sydney Sweeney
can-
is
yeah, exactly. You can do whatever.
Hop on that Sydney Sweeney train.
Chalamet, right?
Charlemagne.
These characters are universal enough. I mean, that's the thing. It's been 100 years, right? So plus.
Mhm.
So really, I think it'd be fun for most actors to stretch and play a version of this, especially if it's written smartly, smartified.
Not like the movie, is what you're saying.
Oh, God. I think there should have been 9 sequels to this film. I think they should still be making sequels. That's what I would do with this intellectual property. I would just keep making sequels. Same thing. Some of the characters are immortal. I'm going to use them. The other ones are older now. Tom Sawyer's the older member of the team now. I'm just bringing all the actors
He's the
back.
leader?
Yeah, totally. Maybe Hyde's cured himself or something, but yes.
I mean, to be honest with you, if they did that, I would see it.
All right, fair enough.
I would see that. I would see it to see if if the train wreck is slightly better.
Uh-huh.
It's
big
such a
disfigured
fascinating.
purple arm for your popcorn. You put your popcorn.
Yeah, yeah. I'll get the big purple.
Yeah, what would the toy
popcorn.
be?
It's a giant Jekyll upside down top hat. Like he had
That big huge hat he had.
giant
Yeah.
hat that he
And-
must
and
have had
white-
custom made.
And white face paint to infuriate Matt.
Yeah, the white.
You stick your hand in,
But
and
not
you get
enough. Not
white
enough.
stuff
It's just like a little bit. He's got a top hat on. Half his face is painted white.
He's got a weird purple arm, very muscularly.
I thought that. I'll tell you. I thought that was Jason Statham as Skinner. He sounded just like him.
Yeah.
It was not him. So I'd put him in the reboot.
Oh
as
God.
Skinner. He'd be a good Skinner.
He just kill everybody, and that'll be the end of the movie.
Well, that
You think
works for
he
me.
would be in a film where you couldn't see him?
No way.
I don't
true.
think he's signed up for that. I don't think you get past his agent on that one.
No.
Really, God, how many
Not a
minutes
chance.
is his giant monkey face on the screen? And the
What's the
answer is
only-
anything other than 75 or greater.
75 out of 80. 80
That's
minutes.
right.
A Meg 3.
Deal over.
Hey, he's the beekeeper, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I wonder if that's any good. I saw the Gentleman,
I did not.
the series.
The series is any
Yeah,
good?
it's very good. I highly recommend.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah. It's on
Love the movie.
what streaming service is it on, Jason?
It's on
Take a while.
Netflix.
Oh, Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cha-ching. Steve gets a check.
Yes.
All right. So, question for the audience, and I'll throw it out to you guys as well. Who would you like to see join the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
So they would have to be public domain,
Mhm.
right?
That's right.
Okay.
Who do you want to
Let me
see?
think.
What public domain character?
I tell you right away. Mickey Mouse. He's public domain
yes,
now.
there it is. Mickey Mouse.
Wait, who'd you say?
Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse.
Mouse. It's so obvious. Ho ho! That bitch is a vampire. Ho ho! Ho ho! Don't bury me in Africa. Ho ho!
That's just as good as his Sean Connery.
Some things in here don't react too well to bullets.
Oh, good impression.
Not bad at all.
I would say Shakespeare.
Okay, like a Shakespearean
William
character.
Shakespeare. No, just William Shakespeare.
Mm.
I guess he's not a character.
Premise
He's a person to me.
violated.
Maybe Romeo.
What would be
Do
what would
Romeo.
be a superpower?
Love?
Oh, God. He's got a big heart on his chest.
I'm going to write
He
our
gives
way out of this.
The Care Bear stare.
Yeah.
Oh, God. He can camouflage himself as a woman.
Yes.
What would Mickey
There
Mouse
you
do?
go.
Everything. Mickey Mouse can do anything. You can shoot him with a shotgun and he just shakes his head and the dust falls off. He's
That white
invincible.
glove.
He's immortal and he's got a team of
Yeah,
lawyers.
the white glove.
He can sue anybody.
Yeah, he's got
Absolutely. Mickey Mouse.
How about you?
Yeah.
The Hatter from Mad Hatter, right?
Is that public
It
domain?
is
now?
Alice in Wonderland. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Hatter. So
Oh, cool.
his superpower would be time manipulates itself for him in unpredictable ways because time respects him. That is the
I like
character in the original
Deep.
story
Yeah.
does not age because he is sentenced to
Oh,
die
yeah.
and time respects him. So it's time manipulation, except he's not manipulating time. Time is manipulating itself for him in unpredictable ways, which I think would be fun.
Huh.
That would be
That
fun.
is very interesting.
You don't think it's too similar to Dorian Gray, though?
He doesn't manipulate time.
No, but he doesn't age.
Well, so Mina doesn't age either.
Oh, you're right.
Did you watch them?
I told you I fell asleep.
I'm going to get you a library
asleep.
card. Yeah. And a popcorn bucket. So also villain. All right. How about this for a villain? All right. So this is our sequel to the hit 2003 film League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. The new team of the League is led by Steamboat Willie. All right. And the villain that they fight is a retired Zorro. Right. So he's like gotten tired of the whole thing and he's basically fighting for Mexican rights, you know, like maybe it's 20, 30, 40 years later, because 1920s is Mickey. So we jump ahead and then we have Zorro, who's now representing Mexican interests against America, and the League is sent over there like to combat. So it's like a little bit of a less black and white scenario, something like that, maybe.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. Silence, crickets.
With
No, you did. It was a thinker.
Mickey Mouse in the as the head of the team is amazing to me. I'm in.
Send money to Palestine.
Let's go. Let's go. You're king of impressions.
Yeah,
today.
he's good. He's really good.
All right. So I know the answer already to this question from Matt, so I'm not even going to ask. Steve, who would you recommend this movie to? Who do you think?
I think comic book fans in general, I would recommend it to, so they can
There's a
kind of see
couple of
what
those.
what a precursor to the Avengers type universe would look like. I think it's still
Nice.
worth watching, Matt.
Yeah.
All the way
Solid
through.
film.
Well, I guess I'm alone in my principles.
Well, speaking of Matt being the odd man out, if you guys like this, if the audience likes this, maybe we'll do some more of Defend Yourself, where we debate the merits of a classic film. For example, The 13th Warrior, right? Which I think Matt also hated, right? You hate good stuff, right? So that one you hate. Transformers 2, which we could definitely debate. That's a film you two love. I love the Transformers
I didn't
tattoo.
say I
didn't
loved
say I
it.
love Transformers
I
too.
like the
I said I
original
love Transformers. I mean, I enjoyed them, but I can't. I would not put myself. I wouldn't put my reputation on the line.
Okay, so
At stake.
Matt loves Transformers,
those.
Revenge of the Fallen. Steve's on the fence, and I'm the lone voice of reason on that one. And what about The Rundown? Do you guys remember that one with The Rock?
I've never seen that one.
I've only
Solid.
seen
Is that
parts
the one
of it.
with Sean William Scott?
Yes.
Yeah.
Classic film. It was one of The Rock's best movies. So if you guys want to watch,
I'd like to see
Okay.
it.
well,
I'd
let
watch
me know
it.
what
I'd
you hate
watch it
about
too.
it. And we'll talk about it.
I've never hated a Rock movie, so I don't think I would be good to
Did you hate The Rock?
to defend it.
The movie The Rock with Sean Connery?
He just said
I
he
love
never
The Rock.
hated a
Oh,
movie
he
with The
only likes
Rock
The
in the title.
Rock of Ages. You probably enjoyed that one too with Tom Cruise.
I love Rock of Ages too.
Rock of Gibraltar.
Yes, that's a good
Bottle
one.
Rocket.
Charlton Heston. Yep, good one. Rocket Man, like that.
Bottle Rocket. Classic. All right, so
Chris Rock Live. Love that.
Matt, I'm going to give you last words on the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Any final words on that one?
Don't do it. Easy. Don't do it.
All right. Well, as always, thank you to the people who made the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and everything else we discussed today. Thank you to the listeners. Make sure you stay away from those like and subscribe buttons and maybe go read a book or some short stories. I'll try to put some links, at least some titles, in the show notes, and I imagine you can find them pretty cheap or for free if you want to put the time in. As always, you can reach the show at don'tencourageus@gmail.com. You can join our Legion of Trolls on YouTube or hit us up on Instagram. You can hit us on Threads or what's left of Twitter, now X, I guess. Check out the show notes for more info, and we will see you next time.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.